Ladies and gentlemen, if you are hearing this, you have once again tuned into the Consequence of Habit podcast. This is your host, JT. This month's episode special one. And the reason for that is for the past 2 years, we've partnered with the University of Delaware. Specifically, they've got a senior public policy class, and they have this program where local companies or nonprofits get to show up, present what they're doing to these students. And these students, they get to pick one of these companies or nonprofits uh, and do their capstone projects on behalf of that. So in our case, on behalf of Consequence of Habit. So when I presented this to these students, what I presented was the idea around habits and consequences as they relate to addictive algorithms, social media, the fast food of tech. So the way this worked is these students, they did a ton of research into the impacts that these algorithms are having on us, mostly children, right? Because as adults, we like to think we get to make our own decisions around this, but we know that children don't. We looked at the effects. They looked at the effects it has on our youth, how it affects their overall wellness, physical, mental. And then they have a lived experience where these students also take a bit of a digital break. I don't like to really call it detox, but for a week, these students have agreed not to go on social media, or at least try not to, and then document their experience. This has been an extremely rewarding project for me to be part of. We're excited to partner with the University of Delaware. And then we had one of the students of our group, 5 or 6 students, but Riley Colford represented this group. And she was the person I got to interview for this podcast. And she did an amazing job. The entire group was outstanding. So I'm excited about this one. I'm excited to continue to work with the University of Delaware. I'd like to do some more of these. And without further ado, please welcome to the podcast, Riley Colford. Ladies and gentlemen, we're sitting down. I'm here with Riley Colford. We're sitting here today. We're in Wilmington, Delaware. And the reason we're doing this is because you are representing a group of a public policy group that did I guess it's a project somewhat on behalf of Consequence of Habit, which I'm extremely grateful for. And this is all around the role of government in addictive algorithms and the effects that they have on our life. And you're a public policy student getting ready to graduate here. How long?
5 days.
5 days. So you're one of, I'm going to let you name everyone else in the group that they unfortunately weren't able to join us here today. So you're here kind of representing this project and the group. So before we get started, I want to make sure that we everyone else gets due credit too. So got to name the other people in the group.
Yeah, so I worked with 4 other amazing students. I worked with Sabrina, Morgan, Frohar, and Kendall. Again, unfortunately, they couldn't be here today, but they contributed so much to this project, and I'm very excited to be here on behalf of them today.
Cool. Awesome. So leading into this, let's talk about how this project works. One, there's different companies or nonprofits that show up and they kind of pitch this idea to students. How does that work? Because I only see it from the side of I show up at UD, pitch this concept, and then hope enough people find
Right.
a little interest. So give us a little backstory on exactly how that works. Or did I already describe it accurately?
In terms of how every student was assigned, we heard from all 4 of the different nonprofits that came in. We heard the projects, the type of work that they do, and essentially we were able to give a bit of a preference to our professor. So we were able to say, we really liked this one. We weren't necessarily aligned with this one as much, and he therefore took them, and he was able to put all of us where we really thought we would excel in. So I put Consequence of Habit first because I found that along with all 4 of the nonprofits that we were shown, I thought that I would align most with what you were asking for us to do. And I thought that it was so relevant, especially given that we are the generation that grew up with social media, grew up with technology at our hands. So I thought it would be interesting to see the relationship between everything that we were going to research and then also my own experience.
Yeah, And that's a great point. What was it about? Yeah, I mean, you kind of already alluded to it, but to your point, you are one of the first generations that has never known life without cell phones, right?
Right.
I mean, which even as somebody, so I'm 50, and I knew I grew up without them, but they've just been so ingrained into our lives. It's like I don't even know. This is sad to say that, like how we got by without them. Which
Right.
um, what was it about between the ones that you said this was your first choice? What was it about this that kind of sparked your interest?
I would say what really sparked my interest was how personal it was, and especially given the fact that this is a capstone project and it's something that's supposed to culminate everything that we learned, I knew that I wanted to put 100% of my effort into it, and I wanted to be able to know that I was doing something of good value,
Mhm.
and that's not to say that the other 3 projects aren't of good value because they absolutely are, but I knew that if I were to go with a project that I wasn't necessarily aligned with and something that I knew would have a personal impact on me or something that I knew would carry me into a certain career field,
Sure,
that I wouldn't be putting as much effort into it. And I thought that the Consequence of Habit project was something that I knew would have a lot of personal impact with me. And I also had a lot of experience with it. So I feel like the research coupled with the experience is something that I knew would progress the project further.
sure, sure. Uh, Maybe lay out because you guys did this in phases, and
Yes.
what you did is you just kind of kept me up to date of what was going on. Why don't you walk me through what those phases were? How you looked at this thing and then kind of started taking it little piece at a time.
Right, yeah. We definitely thought that it would be best to break it down into pieces because there was a lot to cover
Sure.
here. So we separated it into 3 separate phases. So the first one was the research focused one. So we really dived into the research on the design of social media, how that came to be. We talked about the relationship between social media and the rates of anxiety and depression in minors. We researched national and local policy that states have tried to do to remedy the mental health crisis that we're seeing in um, minors when it comes to technology, social media addiction, etc. We also really looked into countries that have started to ban social media and seeing what kind of effects that those have had. We also really dived into some of the other things that we've seen with the rise in social media, so rise in ADHD rates or things like that. So we really wanted to focus on that because if we have that research element, then we were able to say, okay, if this is the foundation, then we can kind of go from there. So after phase 1, we went into phase 2, which is more of the personal side of it. So that's where we did our social media detox. So for 1 week as a group, we decided to not go on any sort of social media. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, you name it, we didn't go on it. And we came back together after the week and discussed how we all felt about it. We kept each other updated throughout the week. We kept each other accountable, which was harder than it seems, but it was a great experience. And we all had a very similar feeling about it, which I can get into later. And then phase 3, we took both of the phases and everything that we learned from there. And we put that into policy initiatives and actions that could be done. So we also separated those into 2. So we did the first part on a more so like local university wide stage. So seeing if there are any policies or actions that can be done at the university level to really get young adults and college age students engaged with the idea of taking a break from social media. But then we also did focus on the legislative and state level actions as well. So we put together some initiatives there that could be done with representatives and senators at the state level to bring awareness to them about the addiction of social media and how it can be remedied as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a powerful word, addiction. Is that after doing the research that you've done? And I'm trying to go into this thing as like not biased
Right.
one way or the other,
Yeah.
which to full transparency, that's tough. Just because we've all seen the roles it's played in our own lives. Is there? Is that word one that you find fitting? Addiction, addicted.
I would say yes. I know one of my partners, Sabrina, she found this article that actually met like the whole article was talking about, is addiction the right word to be using?
Mm,
And the article was saying that addiction is not the right word to be using, and that the word that we should be using is dependent, that people are dependent, not rather than addicted. And I could see both sides to the argument, absolutely. But I think when we think about the word addiction and everything that comes with it, I do see that addiction is what is being shown in kids. And especially after doing the social media detox, even for 1 week, all I could think about was checking my Snapchat or
yeah,
checking my notifications, and I would constantly be checking my phone. Even if my phone wasn't buzzing, I would pick it up to see if there was something, and it was scary almost because I realized, yes, how dependent I was on having that rush, but also that I was asked to go 1 week without it, and I almost couldn't.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I'm comfortable with the word addiction. I mean, more around the negative effects, not just the effects of what the phones do, right? Like when we talk about what they potentially cause, right? You can't say this. All right, this gives you anxiety. It may, but at the same time, it's the things you're not doing that we know help mitigate or prevent anxiety,
Right.
right? So there's the lack of human connection. We've been sold this thing that these things are going to connect us, but at the same time, I mean, science shows we're feeling more isolated.
Right. It's almost like a double-edged sword.
Sure,
Like, you're able to connect with people thousands of miles away, but then once you hit the hang up button and you're alone, then
it's not real.
right, you kind of like you said, you feel more isolated than ever. And that's where people are seeing these jumps in anxiety rates because kids don't know anything other than that non like face to face connection.
Yeah, and I want to be careful too. I mean, obviously, the reason that we're working with UD and we talk about, obviously you're not a kid, but people in their late teens, early 20s, um, this is universal,
Yeah.
right? Like, so your parents, like I said, I'm 50 and I'm struggling with this. I was actually uh, driving in, I was making reference this morning. I started listening to this a guy named Cal Newport who's written books about this, and he had on um, Dr. Anna Lemke, which I think I brought up Dr. Anna Lemke. She's the author of Dopamine Nation.
Mhm.
In some of the conversations we've had in the past with the group, and so I just thought it was fitting that that happened, that episode came out today, and we really they talked about um, the effects that this has, and unlike they kind of broke it down into everyone's always heard of nature and nurture,
Yeah.
reverse nurture, right? So around whether we call it dependency, whether we call it addiction, um, so I think unlike things like alcohol or drugs or where obviously there is a nurture, like if you see that all the time,
Right.
but they added another, or Dr. Lemke added another aspect to it in which he said is neighborhood, right? And that is whatever it is, whatever this thing we can become dependent on, is the availability of it. And when we look at the availability starting at such a young age, you mentioned earlier the first generation to have these things with you nonstop. Um, in your own thoughts, like you looking at the data you've seen, your own experiences, is this something we're going to look back at fast forward to the future and go, I can't believe we were putting this in we were just allowing it, like, or it just became such a norm for us to be glued to these things, or do you foresee the problem getting worse?
That's a great question. I know a lot of the data because the issue I want to say is so new
Mm.
that a lot of the data that we have seen hasn't been our age group. It's been a lot of like 18 and under because since we are the first generation, it was 5, 10 years into it that they're like, oh, we need to start researching this. And we were already too old.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but a lot of the research has shown that in comparison, minors are doing much worse than young adults. And to think that I made my Snapchat account at 9 and I'm 20 now.
Yeah,
To think that that 11-year gap is so big and to think that that's just going to follow me for the rest of my life. Now you see kindergartners that have access
sure.
to this as well. And especially one part of Morgan's research that I found really disturbing, but also we needed to hear was that a lot of these social media platforms are focused on showing people violent or disturbing content because that's what keeps people hooked. That's what keeps people on. So I know when I was younger, there was this whole thing on YouTube or Instagram where it was showing people this like Momo figure that was this really creepy figure and it was giving kids nightmares and
Mhm.
everything like that. But because it became it became this big thing that, oh, I want to go see what Momo is. And then it just started to go down the line and it kept people hooked. It kept people talking about it. So then for social media companies, it was like, oh, if we keep kids hooked on this, what else can we keep them hooked on?
Sure.
And it's just this downward spiral. So I do foresee the problem getting better because people do have more knowledge on it and people have their hands on the fact that this is a problem. I think a lot of parents of younger children are now starting to see that I don't want my kids having access to this. So whether that's delaying getting them a phone, whether that's delaying them getting an iPad, restricting the types of apps that they're allowed to download. I do foresee that getting better, but also it's very much a collective effort
Mhm.
that we can't have one parent doing this with their kids and then that's not going to change everything. It's more so getting the word out there and really showing parents the detriment of what having access to social media at such a young age will do in the future.
Yeah, it's hard because like I've done these things where I'm like, I won't be on Instagram for 30 days, right? So that's right or wrong. I'll justify Instagram because it helps grow but
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's at the end of the day, even though that's partly true, there's other parts of it that I'm just on there for the wrong reasons. Um, and I found when I took those breaks that my addiction or my dependency would morph into looking at things I normally wouldn't even be interested in, right? Whether it be news or email or I'll just check the weather multiple times.
Yeah.
Did you experience that same kind of thing when you took your break?
Very much so. I am very much someone that I use social media almost as a crutch when I'm bored. So in the morning when I'm eating breakfast, I'll scroll on TikTok and I think I'm going to do it for 5 minutes. And then suddenly I've been done for 45
Sure.
minutes and I'm like, oh, I need to go start my day. Or when I'm really procrastinating doing schoolwork, I'll go on Instagram and then suddenly 2 hours later, it's midnight. I want to go to bed, but I haven't started anything. And um, yeah, when I had to take the break, I couldn't do that. So I found myself sitting in silence, which was really weird for me, but also I really needed it. But also, I found myself, like you said, checking my email more. I actually was reading the New York Times emails that I was getting, not just
Right.
opening it and archiving it and then moving on with my day. So I felt a lot more connected to what was going on in the news, whether that was looking at global news, whether that was looking at the Olympics or anything like that, those kinds of news. So I felt a lot more connected to that, but also um it's sad to say, but I would get a lot of that news from social media to begin with.
Sure.
So I also felt I'd never had to do like the two-step process of hearing something on social media, then having to go on Google and look it up. I was able to get it directly from the source. So after the detox, and now that I've started to implement social media back into my life again, I still find myself going back to the New York Times when I'm
Oh,
bored or something like that. So it's been a really nice transition because I'm still so fresh out of the detox that I'm really trying to be conscious about only using social media in periods of extreme downtime or things that won't hinder my schoolwork or my relationships or things like that. And really trying to balance that with reading the news, listening to a podcast, watching a TV show, doing something that will kind of separate the two.
do you find yourself slipping back in quicker than you would have liked to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think if the detox was a little bigger, it would, or it was more time, I think that I absolutely would have, it would have been less of a slippery slope getting back to it. But I would say within 2 weeks, I was scrolling back on social media
Yeah.
again.
I mean, this is the hard part. So if we think about this, right? And again, I know I'm coming in biased and I shouldn't, but we take, we take science that we know works as far as getting people hooked on things, right? Like this, it was a Stanford. I think it was this Stanford had a whole division about this around
Mm,
attention, and so we develop these things, knowing these loopholes in our brain that are
yeah,
going to keep us coming back, and then we give it to our kids. Is it, I mean, to me, uh, you know, if we were doing this with anything else, and this is where I feel like such a hypocrite because my, you know, my kids, well, my youngest is 17, but they have phones, and I deal with this same struggles all the time. Um, but we'll, if there was anything else that was, they said, hey, this thing is going to be, it's going to make your kids dependent or addicted. The science is showing that this is having some really detrimental effects on their mental health, their physical health, their feelings of isolation. Uh, And we said, "Now, would you be willing to give this to your kids?" And it would be unanimously, it'd be a no.
right.
It 100% would be a no. The last group I did this with, and we didn't get to do the podcast. That's why I'm so excited to sit here. Jonathan Haidt, I think, came up with this questioning where he said, "Hey, uh, do you wish Netflix had never been invented?" And you know, the students overall were like, "No."
Mhm.
Like, no, I'm sorry. Like you know, I watch Netflix. Even though I binge it, I'm glad it was invented. And they asked, do you wish TikTok had ever been invented? And unanimously, the kids said, no, I wish it hadn't been invented. I don't even know if I just said that right. Like they said, yes, I wish it never had been
Right. Yeah.
invented. I just totally butchered that, but it's, so it's this thing that we know, right? Like deep down. And I imagine, I mean, have you had conversations away from this? Even when you're in high school, where people, there'll be these moments of clarity where people are like, "Man, I this phone thing is like, you know, I can't believe how much time I spend on it," or is it just kind of something that's buried under the subconscious, and we just go about our business?
Oh, no, my friends and I are very open about discussions like this. Even yesterday, I was having dinner with my roommates and we were talking about social media and TikTok, and we were talking about how we don't have an attention span anymore, how we wanted to sit down and watch a show together, but we kept having to pause it 37 times for a 45-minute TV show because we couldn't have the attention span to sit down and do things. And even talking about TikTok never being invented, when last year TikTok was banned for the less than 24 hours, you would have thought the world ended. I was freaking out, my friends were freaking out. We were like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna have all of this free time. You legit would have thought that's something horrible happened, but no. TikTok was getting banned and we weren't going to have TikTok anymore. And to think back that that was our biggest worry in January 2025, like we ha- we had so many other things going on even in our personal lives. Like we were starting our second semester of that school year. We were going to be so busy, but all people could focus on was the fact that they couldn't doom scroll for 2 hours before bed anymore. So to think that we have become so dependent, so addicted to an app like that, that if we didn't have access to it, people thought that we would lose all sense of communication with one another.
Yeah. It's such a complicated thing, because we like to think that we have, this sense of agency in our lives and know what's good for us and what's not good for us. And then we push back on the role the government plays in this. I remember my son when they said, "Hey, you guys have to start locking your phone up during certain classes." They had, their I forget what the bags are. And he was really unhappy, and
Yeah.
he was trying to make an argument for the reason that it's a stupid idea. And fast forward this weekend, him and I were sitting together, and we had been on our phone, and something came up around phone use, and he goes, "You know who's going to be a billionaire? The person that figures out how to get us away from our phone."
Yeah.
But I think the issue is there is no magic pill, right? This is the thing about, when you become addicted or you become dependent, there is no, like I use the brick. Yeah, I don't know if you know what the brick is. It's a thing you would take your phone and you would just touch it to this magnetic thing,
Oh,
and it shuts down social media.
okay.
It's a brilliant idea, right?
Yeah.
If you use it.
Right.
All right. So my point is there is no thing. Uh, the thing that's going to make the change is the hard part of sitting there not being able to doom scroll.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Right. Like now you're forced to find other things to do with your time.
mhm.
And people my age don't want to be forced to do anything. So trying to get them, the TikTok ban could have been a really good thing because it could have led to so many other things. But less than 24 hours, we got it back and we're acting like nothing ever happened.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was part of the new. And then here's the other thing is when we have this, you talked about reading. Did you say it was the Times?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're reading the New York Times, these articles take a bit to come together because there's this journalistic standard that says you have to, I don't know, print facts
Right.
as close to as possible. And the other thing around these constant news cycles, I mean, if you think back, and this isn't, I don't want to get into politics, because that's a very easy thing for me to do. But at the news cycle changes so quickly that it almost becomes a form of dopamine in itself.
Yes.
And social media not only is this, um, having effects on us, our physical, our mental wellness, but it's dictating what we think we believe one way or the other, right? Like,
Absolutely.
and that's a terrifying thing. I mean, we look back. I think Obama was probably the first to really dig into the social media helping, this isn't a left or a right thing because they're all guilty of it now. But and then you have instant access to people that are not necessarily promoting facts, but they sure sound good at it.
Right.
And it's we've seen it on both sides where misinformation is further dividing us, as if sitting on our phones for hours a day not interacting with an actual human isn't doing enough.
Right. Yes.
What was the discussion with the group? Was there anything that as a group you guys found You mentioned one thing I think that you said, Morgan found, but was there anything else you guys found alarming enough to where as a group you're like, "Wow, I hadn't thought about this," or, um, did you everyone just kinda know it and this was just bringing it to the light?
I think one of the other alarming things that we found was also Morgan's, um, research because she focused a lot on like the design of social media. So a lot of the research that we did on the effects of social media, the mental health crisis that we're seeing, the different national and local policies, a lot of us already knew that. So it was almost reinforcing what we already knew. But what we found really intriguing was how a lot of social media designs were designed after what casinos do, where they try to get people hooked. So when casinos don't have clocks around the room, like there are certain apps that will like hide the time so you don't think 2 hours have gone by, but they actually have. The um infinite scrolling patterns, all those different mechanisms. To think that people always talk about like casinos and gambling and how that addiction can be really detrimental. To think that something like that now has the same design as a social media app that we use all day, every day. As a group, we were very surprised to see that. But now that we have done this project and we've done extensive research on everything, it doesn't really shock me anymore
Mm.
because these companies make money off of people using them. So to maximize their profits, they want to keep people on there as long as possible. So you hear people go to casinos at 8 p.m. and they leave 48 hours later thinking that 2 hours have passed. So why not use the same thing on a social media app? And it's been working. So it's not like it was a failed experiment. It's actually been very successful.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, like, I don't feel like it was an intentional thing. I think it was a concept and it was idea where maybe they did think at some point that this is gonna help connect people. But at some point, they obviously knew. I mean, there was just a lawsuit that I think it went to the I don't know if it went to the Supreme Court, just recently where, there's gonna be some huge fines to Meta.
Yes, I did see that with Mark Zuckerberg. Yes, I brought it up to my class because I was again during the detox, I was on my email reading the New York Times and I saw that and I freaked out because of how relevant it was to the conversation that we were having in class, to our team project. So I was reading it, and to think that this is one of the first times a court has really shown, yes, this is a problem and this is something that a company like Meta needs to be accountable for. I think it was a very big win for this discussion, for this topic on showing people how dangerous social media addiction can really be.
Yeah, and getting back to my point, they've known for a while, and I've spoken to people in the industry that have said, "Hey, when Facebook was starting to lose a little bit of popularity, they upped, yeah, the settings on it to make sure that, to your point, with something you mentioned earlier, these more shocking things are, fed in the algorithm to you because, it's like slowing down to look at that car crash, like, it's just human nature,
Right.
it's what we do. Uh, and that in itself to me shows that they're implicit in keeping our eyes on the screen because at the end of the day, this is advertising.
Yes.
This is about selling whatever is being sold to you, depending on what your algorithm dictates that you would be something you'd be interested in, or the listening. Did you guys do any of the research? Did you find anything about because everyone says, "Hey, my phone's listening to me." I mentioned whatever a Toyota Sequoia to a buddy, and now I'm getting nothing but ads about this thing. Did you see anything in your research that you came across where that's legit, or are they just predicting what you probably would like because of the massive amounts of data that's being collected on us?
We didn't come across any research about that, but it's a very intriguing avenue. It was something that we didn't think of
Mm.
going through our research, but we did see that a lot of For You pages or what you see when you're scrolling is very personalized. So even if you even if you think your phone may be listening to you, it's also no matter what you scroll past, even if you are scrolling, and you stop on a Honda CRV for more than a second, it's immediately going to flag that, and all it's going to do is start showing you things. So even if your phone may not be listening to you, it absolutely is pinpointing what you believe is interesting to look at and what you find to be the most important on your feed, and it's generating all of the advertisements and things from there.
What was you're gonna well, let me back up. You guys are gonna be presenting this to the entire class. I'll be present, and all of your findings. Were there members of the group that did not see this as big a problem even after doing this research, or was it, was it pretty much a collective, like, "Oh, shit," kind of thing when you guys did the research? Was some people like, "Yeah, it really doesn't phase me."
I would say there were a few members that almost knew going into the project how big of a problem it is, so the research didn't necessarily shock them or surprise them. It was more so reinforcing, "That makes sense. I knew that already," everything like that. But I think we really came together collectively during the detox that we all did, because you can read all the research, you can read all of these statistics, and it won't really stick until you go through the process yourself. So from there, as a collective group, we really did see that this is as big of a problem because it's n- we're not immune to it. You can read things and think, "Oh, that'll never happen to me." But then you do it and suddenly you're a part of that statistic.
Yeah, it's not even that this would never happen to me. It's I think even for myself, it's a realization that it happened,
Mm.
past tense,
Right.
right? Like, I'm up to my eyeballs in it. And a lot of things with consequence of habit, we talk about having this sense of control in your life, and when that's taken away and we're blind to it, and then all of a sudden it's kind of put in your vision. I mean, we've talked about as the group, how do we connect with young people to let them know or just really reinforce that this is an issue, and it's very hard. I mean, it's very hard for me. Uh, or somebody older to say, "Hey, like, you guys shouldn't be doing this." When they see kids see their parents, young people see their parents doing the same thing, and I'm trying to figure out how to reframe this in a way that connects with everyone. And I think I might have mentioned this group, but this idea that it's monopolizing not just our health, but our time, and nobody wants to be told, "Hey, for 4 hours a day, you're gonna be looking at what I'm gonna show you."
Right.
And that's the reality,
Yeah.
if not more. I mean, there's a lot of people that it's 8 hours a day.
Oh,
It's a full-time job.
yes. I remember the first time that I went to the pediatrician's office and they asked me what my screen time was. And I was really confused because I was like, "Why do you care? I'm here to talk about,
My
like,
health.
my health,
Right.
this doesn't make any sense." But then I opened it and I legit think it was, like, 6 hours a day,
Mhm.
and I had to have been 13 or 14 at the time.
Yeah, that's tough because when that's put in our face, the first feeling that most people have is shame, right? Like, they're embarrassed by the amount of time.
Right.
But we have to get rid of that.
Yeah.
That has to be gone. We have to realize that some of the smartest people in the world have designed this is not an accident. This isn't your moral character that's showing here. This is the process of scientists putting something together that works.
Right.
A-
Yeah.
And what I was listening to literally on the way here is Dr. Lemke was talking about this idea of brutal honesty. And if I'm brutally honest, I'm very much affected by this. It's hard to be passionate about something, and then also it's like, hey man, this drink, alcohol is such a problem, but also being an active drinker, like you can't,
Right.
at the same time, I think it is a good start.
Yeah.
So I'm quite aware of the hypocrisy, and even working with you guys is just a reminder how I need to even make my own changes in the technology use, and to be brutally honest about the role it plays in not just my life, but everybody's life. And God, there's so much more.
Yeah. The biggest thing I took away from the detox, I would say, is how much social media has changed my relationships, whether that's my relationships with my parents or my siblings or my friendships, because since I couldn't go on social media, I wasn't up to date with the newest trends that were going on or the newest meme of that week. So my friends would come home and say, "Oh, Riley, did you see what I sent you on Instagram?" And I was like, "No, I haven't been on Instagram today." And they'd be like, "Oh, okay." And then the conversation would die. So I found myself really having to go out of my way to find things to talk about with my friends, and they weren't as my I would say a lot of the conversations weren't as engaging if they weren't revolved around something related to social media. So it was, I would say, a little concerning to think that a lot of relationships or friendships are based around the newest TikTok that I was sent or things that we see on social media, what influencers are doing that day. Because while we're all living our own lives, social media has also showed us how invested we are in other people's lives.
Yeah, and I think it's a barrier to, and I can always go back to alcohol because that's how this whole thing started. One of the biggest fears of not drinking anymore was like, well, what am I gonna tell my friends? Like, how am I gonna hang out with my friends?
Right.
And this almost has, it's not identical, but I think it has an aspect of that. If everyone is talking about whether, the newest AI, little funny video of whatever, the
Yeah.
chiropractor throwing an old lady through a wall, or Bigfoot doing cocaine with somebody, like,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
and you don't have that. You're like, yeah, you're oblivious. There is a fear, and I think I think, man, I mean, I think you would find other things to talk about, but I do think it's a barrier to get people to maybe make those changes because they're afraid of that social aspect of being gone, of not being able to share those things. 'Cause how many times, hey, did you see that thing I sent you? So funny, so funny. Like that's
All the time.
yeah, family members too. I do it with my wife and kids. Like, hey, did you see that thing I sent you?
Right. And I think a lot of people are scared because they feel like they're in so deep that there's no point in trying to make any changes because, oh, I've already used social media for 10 years. Like, I not necessarily that they're immune to the different, like, the changes, but, oh, like, it's already impacted me, so why
I'm
change anything?
yeah,
But
that's insanity though.
right. Like, I there's a reason that there are drug addicts or alcoholics out there that have been addicted for 25 years and then they're able to come out and actually start living
Sure.
a much healthier life out there. So it's really about acknowledging that there is a problem and then taking that first step towards fixing it.
Yeah. I've said this. Nobody wants to be on their deathbed. No one will be on their deathbed and go, I wish I was on TikTok more.
Right.
Like, because
Exactly.
because there is life. And I think when we look at it, going back to how we talk to people, it's um, if you want to choose how you spend your life, know that these things, there's a high likelihood that it will monopolize your time. It will take away these things. And also accepting that some people, uh, they can manage it, right? They can have a perfectly healthy relationship with it. So it's not across the board. And that's what makes it so hard, I think, um, is the ability to accept that for a large portion of us, we're we can't, right? We have to
Yeah.
have these physical barriers and know that willpower in itself is not going to be enough. And then we introduce these to kids, and that gets that don't have a developed prefrontal cortex, and these habits start very early in life. So um, I'm I'm extremely grateful. When I presented this thing to you guys, um, both times, I don't think I realized the impact that it would have on me and bringing this to light. Also, it's just a reminder, and I think it's something everybody needs. It's just like when the social dilemma came out, everybody was talking about it, and then
Oh, yes.
we went back to our go back to it.
Right. I watched it in 10th grade for a school assignment, and I remember thinking that it was the biggest deal in the world, that we had all of these experts that have left the industry talking about how bad the industry is and how everything like that, and then I left class and suddenly it was right out of my head, and I was back on Snapchat texting my friend or something like that.
Yeah. Um, to kind of to wrap this thing up, well, you've talked a lot about your own experiences, but where do you see the role of government in regulating this?
I think though, unfortunately, a lot of policies can't be put in place because of things like First Amendment protections and things like that. That was a big part of my research. But I think the government, especially like state government, there's a lot of advocacy potential there. So showing representatives and senators the data, telling them and advocating for the issue at hand, and they're able to then reach their constituents and say, this is a problem and it's not something that you should be ashamed about, like we were talking about, but something that can be fixed to then lead to healthier relationships, healthier physical life, healthier mental life. So I think for government, it's more so teaching them about that, and then also giving them a platform to where they can go out and really bring it upon what they believe is important, and then that will also trickle down. So it's more so like a top down approach rather than a bottom up.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, and just like stopping doing this, breaking that dependency, it's not going to be one thing. It's going to be the individuals that realize that this is late. It's monopolizing my time. It's the parents realizing the addictiveness and not allowing their kids, and I think just as importantly, mirroring the relationship with technology that they want their kids to have, and I think that's when I look back, like I look back at like this isn't about me, but my relationship with alcohol. One of the things I felt most ashamed about is showing that this is how we adult,
Mhm.
right? So, and I think as parents, if we start looking at that and say, hey, we can't expect our kids to act this way if we're going to do the same thing, right?
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm extremely grateful for you, the group, the opportunity. I'm excited to see you guys present this. Is that tomorrow?
Yes.
So I'm excited to see the entire presentation. I think you had offered, hey, do you want to see what's? I don't want. I want to see it in like real time as it happens. So I appreciate you taking the time to come here to have the conversation. Appreciate you and the group's willingness to put yourself through some discomfort of going through this, the fast and then the research. So thank you to you and the group.
Yes, on behalf of the group, thank you so much for having us. We've had a great semester learning about all of this, and we're excited to share all of our findings tomorrow.
Awesome.